Federalist 75, Part 2. If you haven't already seen Part 1, please do so. I'm going to start reading from the middle of the second paragraph. This is where we stopped. The essence of the legislative authority is to enact laws, or in other words, to prescribe rules for the regulation of the society. And I focused on this sentence because it's important. In a constitutional representative democracy, you want to make sure that the laws are clear. Everybody knows the rules. Laws have to be public. They can't be changed by the whim, by the just the mood of the president or the Congress. No, they can't just change it like that and not let people know. So it has to be public. This way everybody plays by the same rules. While the execution of the laws and the employment of the common strength, either for this purpose or for the common defense, seem to comprise all the functions of the executive magistrate. The power of making treaties is plainly neither the one nor the other. It relates neither to the execution of the subsisting laws nor to the inaction of the new ones, and still less to an exertion of the common strength. Its objects are contracts with foreign nations which have the force of law, but derive it from the obligations of good faith. They are not rules prescribed by the sovereign to the subject, but agreements between sovereign and sovereign. The power in question seems therefore to form a distinct department and to belong properly neither to the legislative nor the executive. The qualities elsewhere detailed as indispensable in the management of foreign negotiations point out the executive as the most fit agent in those transactions, while the vast importance of the trust and the operation of treaties as laws plead strongly for the participation of the whole or a part of the legislative body in the office of making them. So as we talked about in Part 1, he says treaty making is one of those areas where it applies both to the legislative authority and the executive authority. That's why in this Constitution we gave the treaty-making power to the president, because as one person he can show the energy, stability, focus of the government of a country, and at the same time 2/3 of the members of the Senate present can actually concur with the president and actually establish the treaty as a treaty, as a law of the nation. So that's why we've gone out of our way to make sure that the president doesn't think that he's got the ultimate authority and have the Senate involved. And as I talked in Part 1, he doesn't like the House of Representatives to meddle in this at all because of what he calls fluctuations and multiplicity of multitudinous of the members. The next paragraph, however proper or safe it may be in governments where the executive magistrate is an hereditary monarch, to commit to him the entire power of making treaties, it would be utterly unsafe and improper to entrust that power to an elective magistrate of 4 years duration. So in a monarchy, in Britain, whatever, yes, you can let the monarch, or they let the monarch have the last say, or they did have the last say in making treaties. But he says in a representative government like ours, this republic, you can't give that power alone. You can't give that power to the president alone, who only serves for 4 years unless he gets reelected. It has been remarked upon another occasion, and the remark is unquestionably just, that an hereditary monarch, though often the oppressor of his people, has personally too much at stake in the government to be in any material danger of being corrupted by foreign powers. But a man raised from the station of a private citizen to the rank of chief magistrate, possessed of but a moderate and slender fortune, and looking forward to a period not very remote when he may probably be obliged to return to the station from which he was taken, might sometimes be under temptations to sacrifice his duty to his interest, which it would require superlative virtue to withstand. An avaricious man might be tempted to betray the interests of the state to the acquisition of wealth. An ambitious man might make his own aggrandizement by the aid of a foreign power the price of his treachery to his constituents. The history of human conduct does not warrant that exalted opinion of human virtue which would make it wise in a nation to commit interests of so delicate and momentous a kind as those which concern its intercourse with the rest of the world to the sole disposal of a magistrate, created and circumstanced as would be a president of the United States. See how realistic he is? He says a monarch might have a lot to lose if he or she makes a bad treaty, because it's all his glory. He always thinks of himself or herself first. He just wants his reputation, his pomp and glory to be known around the world. But he says in a system like ours, where some average middle-income person might become president, if you don't get the Senate involved, then he might just say, okay, if I make a treaty and here in 3-4 years I'm going to be out of the office and I can make millions. And he says things like this in human history have happened so many times that we can't be blind to it. That's why we want to get the Senate involved. The next paragraph, to have entrusted the power of making treaties to the Senate alone would have been to relinquish the benefits of the constitutional agency of the President in the conduct of foreign negotiations. It is true that the Senate would in that case have the option of employing in his capacity, but they would also have the option of letting it alone, and pique or cabal might induce the latter rather than the former. Besides this, the ministerial servants of the Senate could not be expected to enjoy the confidence and respect of foreign powers in the same degree with the constitutional representative of the nation. Representative of the nation is talking about that one person, the president. He'll be the focus of attention. So it says maybe foreign powers will not take any one or even maybe 5 of the senators as seriously as they would in negotiations with one person that's got the title of presidency, that has the powers of the presidency. While the Union would form this cause lose a considerable advantage in the management of its external concerns, the people would lose the additional security which would result from the cooperation of the executive. Though it would be imprudent to confide in him solely so important a trust, yet it cannot be doubted that his participation in it would materially add to the safety of the society. It must indeed be clear to a demonstration that the joint possession of the power in question by the President and Senate would afford a greater prospect of security than the separate possession of it by either of them. And whoever has maturely weighed the circumstances which must concur in the appointment of a president will be satisfied that the office will always bid fair to be filled by men of such characters as to render their concurrence in the formation of treaties peculiarly desirable, as well on the score of wisdom as on that of integrity. So that's why every way we looked, we decided the best thing is to have both the president and the Senate involved in making and ratifying treaties. Because if we'd gone with one, there would have been a mistake. We would not have really done the best we could in this new Constitution. As you can see, I am showing you different editions of the Federalist, as I've said before, that when you get a chance, make sure that you read the different introductions by these different editions. These introductions are by different scholars, and just see what their take is on this great and important work. So we will continue reading Federalist 75 in part 3 in the next video.